You might have heard of a game called Arc Raiders. Anyone played this game when it was available? It's not available at the moment. You don't play Arc Raiders? Put a one in the chat maybe if you have played. Sounds like not many. No. Okay, no one's played Arc Raiders. All right, there we go. That's fine. That's not a problem. But the reason I wanted to talk about this game particularly, so I saw this game. It was out, I think around May and end of May, and it was released, and it went gangbusters. People loved it. It was really good. So the question that I'm sort of asking is why did this game work so well? What's so good about it? So a couple of questions. So two questions we've got here. Number one, what makes Arc Raiders so good? So this is an interesting question to ask. And number two, as game designers and developers, how do we create games this good? And this is, I guess, the real question that it comes down to. You know, how do we actually stand out from the crowd? How do we make something that people are going to enjoy, that have a great experience with? So all these sort of questions, these are kind of important. So if you don't know, this is the Steam page, so you can get to it on Steam. It is actually going to be released, I think just in the last couple of days. The release is going to be in October, so you can actually play this game again in October. It came out just for like a test, the play test here. Okay, so that's something you can do on Steam, by the way, as well. If you're developing on Steam, you can set up like a play test like that, so you can just have, you know, like a week's playtest and get feedback and stuff, and yeah, and all that. So the question, why Arc Raiders has been so successful when so many other extraction shooters have failed? So this is a really interesting question. So we sort of think here about, we've got the player interacts with their game, and then they have a player experience. So for some reason, Arc Raiders actually managed to create a compelling / engaging player experience. And what I think we want to find out is why that was, and perhaps how we might be able to recreate that in our own games. Now, I'm not an Arc Raiders player, nor am I a extraction shooter player, but thankfully there is a YouTuber that I've been following for some time. Has some entertaining videos at times, but Aqua FPS, so you may have heard of him or not. There's loads of YouTubers around, I am aware, but has played a lot of Tarkov, and I think also has played Hunt Showdown. So has a lot of experience with these sort of extraction shooters, and then did his own video. You can see this down here. So this, what I'm doing here is actually based on this. Why everyone is obsessed with Arc Raiders. And I thought this is a really good opportunity for us as developers, designers, to get feedback from someone who's got a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge as a player. And I thought that's kind of worth doing. So, and he does talk about here, but there really are too many generic extraction shooters. So I have sort of just taken some parts out of that video, and I hope they're going to play, and you're going to be able to at least hear them and see them here. So first up, what is an extraction shooter? Let's sort of have a look at how he describes it.
Arc Raiders, a game where you enter a post-civilization environment and fight with other players over loot and supplies to advance your character, thus enhancing your ability to find said loot and supplies and defeat other players in an endless cycle of misery. Or in other words, an extraction shooter.
Okay, could you guys hear that? It's a bit quiet for me. I don't know if I can do much about that. But anyway, so extraction shooter. Sorry?
I could hear it.
You could hear it? Excellent. Could you see it?
Have to, some people might just have to
Crank it up a bit. Yeah. Could you see it okay as well?
Turn up the stream.
Could you see the video okay as well?
Oh, yes.
Fantastic. Excellent. There we go. Discord. Who was that? Who did that? Okay, so extraction shooters. So, you know, for those of you who are not familiar with extraction shooters, extraction shooters share similar progression elements. First up, they tend to have PvP and PvE elements in the game. So there's definitely that PvP aspect. If you're not a PvP fan, or if you're not very good at PvPs like me, then you may not be an extraction shooter player. Also, completing missions and quests as well. So there's missions and things in there. Collecting items. So you go in there, you collect items, you accumulate loot, and then you've got to successfully extract. If you don't successfully extract and someone else kills you, then they take all your stuff, and that's very sad. That's why it's hard, and that's why, you know, sometimes these games are quite unpleasant, because, you know, if you're not very good, if you're new, then the number of times, you know, you're going to get killed and have all your shit taken from you is a lot, and it can be quite grinding. Some examples of this, of some successful examples. Escape from Tarkov. I think most of you may have heard of that before. Been around for a long time. I think it was, I don't know if it was the first extraction shooter. It was the first extraction shooter that I saw, and I think the first time I would have seen Escape from Tarkov might have been like 7 years ago or so. And there's also another one called Hunt Showdown. And if you go back through my videos on my YouTube channel, go back about, I think, maybe 6 or 7 years, you'll see I have done a video on Hunt Showdown. I love the environment. I love the graphics, the sound, everything in Hunt Showdown's great. It's just the gameplay. I'm not an extraction shooter player, so I don't enjoy that one so much. So that's what an extraction shooter is. There's some examples there as well of some existing successful extraction shooters. Okay, so what's the problem? Let's just have a look at what our YouTuber friend Aqua FPS is saying.
I know what you're thinking. Oh, great, another extraction shooter. And I get that, considering the miasma of generic extraction shooters being shoved down our throats constantly by the gaming industry following the massive success of Escape from Tarkov.
Okay, so there we go. It's interesting that this is a problem. This is not just a problem that people making extraction shooters are faced with at the moment. This is a problem in the games market overall. You may have heard, I think it was it 18,000 games were released on Steam last year, 2024. Now, even though the majority of those are not particularly great, there's still a lot. There's still a couple of thousand at least that you would be competing with. And it doesn't really matter what type of game you're making these days, you're generally going to be up against a lot of competition. So that's a big question that I think every game developer is going to be facing. You know, how do you stand out from the crowd? So something I hear a lot, I think, and I don't know, maybe some of you have this this feeling as well. Maybe you have this idea. The gameplay and the gunplay is the core thing. That's the main thing you need to get done. Nothing else kind of really matters. Put a 1 in the chat if you agree with it. If you think that's the main thing that you've got to get right. No one agrees. No one's going to agree with that. Danny, you agree with that? Ash, yeah. Mechanics, only 2. Okay. So this is a pretty common thing that I hear from game designers, game programmers, game developers. So I just wanted to, this is something that I want to put in here, because this also, Aqua FPS also had this idea as well, so I thought it's worth looking at.
Playing Arc Raiders, I was always under the impression that gameplay/gunplay was king, especially in extraction shooters or FPS games in general. How it felt to actually use the weapons.
It's 12 o'clock.
And the PvP, time to kill, all that jazz. How that was all balanced, I thought was the most important thing.
Okay, yeah. So this is where Aqua FPS is coming from as well. He's kind of a hardcore gameplay, right? Yeah. So mechanics. Okay, but let's see what he says about that.
While it's still very solid, the gunplay is arguably the worst part of this game. It doesn't feel like it has the skill shot complexity of other games. Kind of feels like I'm playing Fortnite, to be honest.
Okay, so interestingly enough, what does he say about that? I mean, this is really quite interesting to hear. So he's saying that actually the gunplay is possibly the worst part of the game. Now that's kind of surprising because this is a shooter. This is definitely a shooter. This is PvP, PvE. So the gunplay is definitely an important part of that. Oh, did I just skip one? Did I skip one? Hang on, let me have a look here. Did we get right
While
through?
it's still very solid, the gunplay is arguably the worst part of this game. It doesn't feel like it has the skill shot complexity of other games. Kind of feels like I'm playing Fortnite, to be
Yeah,
honest.
okay. Sorry, I just had to replay that. So what he's saying there, which is interesting, number one, for a hardcore shooter, he's saying that the third-person view is a good thing, is a positive thing. If anyone else is a hardcore shooter, who plays hardcore shooting games, you'll know that that's not normally the case. So, for instance, PUBG started out as third-person, and there was a lot of feedback saying, hey, we don't like it as third person. And they kind of switched, or they provide at least a first person view for the more hardcore gamers. But he's saying there, look, it allows peeking, easier to extract camping, which is not necessarily a good thing. The combat feels less skill-based, more like Fortnite. Now, here we go, Fortnite. Why would someone base a game on Fortnite? Why would you try and be more like Fortnite? Any suggestions? There's another game we talked about recently. I think just yesterday, in fact. I talked about Elden Ring Night Rain, which, yeah, I'm pretty sure it basically is Fortnite meets Elden Ring. Why is this? Why do you reckon this might be happening? Fortnite. I can see a few people are typing. If anyone wants to... Magna, Fortnite's fun. Yeah. Also pretty easy to pick up since gunplay is simple. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Danny, ultra successful game that worked and is still going. Yeah, I mean, it's still successful, even though it's not as successful as it used to be. I mean, it was a phenomenon. It was just a money-making machine. It's not quite as successful as it was back then, but my God, it's still going strong. So there's a lot of money coming out of there. So, and also, like, who's Fortnite aimed at as well? Like, it's actually aimed at like young kids. And if you think about, in fact, both Elden Ring and the other two extraction shooters we're talking about, so Elden Ring and was it Escape from Tarkov? Escape from Tarkov is very hardcore, and as I think pretty much is what was the other one I was talking about as well? Goodness me, Hunt Showdown. So they're all pretty hardcore. But this one, they're saying, is more like Fortnite, which means it's very accessible. Pretty much. It's going to be, if your combat's like Fortnite, it's pretty accessible. Which means what? It means you're potentially going to get more players, you're potentially going to get more money, more income, which is kind of nice. Also said headshots and precision are less satisfying. But again, what is your motivation there? So he also mentions as well, this is another one which I didn't get the video of this, but talks about other extraction shooters feeling like asset vomit. I think he might be talking about here, when he talks about it, is people just going on the asset stores, going and buying a whole lot of assets, throwing them into a game or a game world, into an engine, creating something, and it just doesn't really. And the next one's soulless, so it doesn't have what we might call a soul. And he talks about focusing too much on mechanics rather than creating an engaging world. So what does he actually say is the X factor here?
But what the third person does lend itself to in this game is its immersion, which is what I think sets Arc Raiders apart from many other games in the genre.
Okay, so this is what he's saying is the X factor. And immersion, I would say, in fact, immersion is basically what you need for a successful game. Am I wrong? If you don't have immersion, pretty sure a game's not going to be very successful, no? I think you need some sort of immersion. So, okay, I mean, that's fine. I mean, saying immersion is the X factor. That's no problem. Okay, so he's saying here that the player experience, the important thing here. So we know that the player, you know, has a personal relationship with the game, also has a functional relationship with the game. Functional relationship is basically just the, you know, input-output stuff. So your controller, your screen, your headphones, whatever. Personal relationship is more about the emotional relationship. Player experience is this immersion. Okay, no problem. Okay, fine. But what is immersion? Thankfully, he does actually talk about this. So let's have a look what he says about immersion.
And what makes it so damn good.
Oh, I did the wrong thing there. Sorry.
And what makes it so damn good. The aesthetic is absolutely awesome. I love it. I love this crusty future shit. Beyond that, every map was created with such thought and care and purpose. Traversing every inch of this game was an absolute pleasure. And getting to watch your character in a third-person view interact with this world and maneuver through it is a cinematic experience and adds to the immersion. I mean, just look at this shit. Also, the sound design is something I immediately noticed in this game. It's phenomenal. Not only can I hear where other players are appropriately, what a concept, but also just some of the sounds are so rich and full and unique. I mean, listen to the noise that the AI make when you're interacting with them. Also, just the way you interact with the AI really adds to the experience. They're not just an annoyance. They're a whole other entity you have to consider, not only due to the fact that they will kill the shit out of you if you're not careful.
Okay, so there we go. He tells us what he thinks the elements contributing to immersion are. Number one, the aesthetics. So visual style he describes as absolutely awesome. Number two, the map design. So created with thought and care and purpose, making exploration enjoyable. I would suggest that for this type of game, for an extraction shooter, map design is extremely important. Maybe less important for other types of games, maybe as important for other types of games as well, different types of games. Number three, third-person view. This is the one that, you know, this is the surprising one that I'm like, yeah, really? Third person? Okay. Again, because most hardcore gamers tend to prefer first person. So he say this allows players to watch their character interact with the world, creating a cinematic experience that enhances immersion. He also talks about other things. So sound design, highlighted as phenomenal, described as rich and full and unique. And he also mentions the AI, which is a really interesting one as well, and may reflect the level of AI sort of in general in games, I guess. But it's something, you know, for those of you who are interested in the AI, in enemy AI, he talks about it. He says that they aren't merely obstacles, but a whole other entity you have to consider. Now, I would have thought you normally want that in your game, no? I mean, if you're putting enemies in there, if you're putting AI in there, then you want them to have, you want your players to have that kind of reaction. Also says this makes each raid feel like a sneak mission, adding tension and depth to your gameplay. So he gives those, now these are, obviously this is his opinion. So aesthetics, map design, third person view, sound design, AI. Someone else, if someone else is doing this, they may have a different set of elements there. But you know, this is interesting to know because Aqua FPS does play a lot of these types of games, and so it's really good for us, game designers and developers, to get this from someone who is knowledgeable about this types of games. So the other question, again, as game designers, how do we create this? Number one, adequate time and energy into design and pre-production. So, you guys did pre-production last trimester, so you had the opportunity to do that then. So hopefully you've got that. Adequate time and energy into development. So, of course, there's also limits. Don't forget, when you talk about adequate time and energy, there's also money. So if you have a budget of X, then and you've got a team, you have to pay your team. People are not going to work for you for nothing. So you've got to work out how much you can do. So scoping really comes into that as well. You need to make sure that what you're trying to do is doable with the team you've got within that amount of time you have as well. Number three, a talented team. So again, the capacity of your team. What are their talents? What are they? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Can you make up for the weaknesses and things like that? And also, preferably with experience working together. We've all had experiences where we've worked in a team, and for whatever reason, it doesn't mean that the other members of the team are not good or what have you, but for some reason the team doesn't gel. That can happen. And other times you get a team, first time it works together and it just gels, it works really well. And that team just creates really good stuff. That can happen. So preferably with experience working together, so you know that you can work together. And the last two are really important. So we've got effective communication, and finally also a shared vision. So these two, I think, are ones that we really can make a difference with these. So communicating effectively to our team, and I think even yesterday, a number of you, or at least one or two, talked about this being something of a challenge. So, getting effective communication, make sure everyone knows what's going on. And this one as well, I think maybe we don't talk about this one quite as much, but having a shared vision. What are you doing? Where are you going? What are you trying to create? If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? Or worse, if your team thinks it's going in different directions, and I have seen this, I've seen some very extreme examples of this where one or two people are creating X game and another person or another two people want to create a completely different game altogether. So is this being recorded? Yes, this is being recorded. Yes, I will put this up. I will put this up so you can check this out again. Yeah, or if anyone's missing it, they can watch this as well. So having that shared vision, I don't know whether anyone's thought about that so far. We haven't really talked about it, I don't think, but making sure that everyone really understands where we're going. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to break into our groups. It's 20 to 4, so we've got plenty of time, I think. So what we might do is spend maybe 25 minutes going through these questions. So I want to talk about sort of discussing the elements contributing to immersion and thinking about your game. I want you to think about what you're creating and how it relates to you. So what elements of your game create immersion for the player? So we know the ones that Aqua FPS pointed out there. They may not be the same as yours, or some of them may be. That's fine. Come up with your own list. What are the important elements? What are the most important elements of your game that are going to create immersion for your player? Is there anything you can do to improve immersion in your game? So particularly thinking about those elements, can you improve those in a way, or do you need to think about them more? Is there anything you can do to actually improve them? On the other hand, also, does your team have a shared vision of the game? This is going to be an important one. So talking about that, and finally, are there ways you could improve your team communication as well? So we're going to break up, I think, for about 25 minutes, come back.